Alright, in this lesson we're going to learn about domain and range, which actually you're familiar with. It's just different words for the x and the y in a set of ordered pairs. But you're going to watch one video, you're going to answer 4 questions, and you're going to complete section 2 in your Cornell notes. And we're really just going to talk about these two things that really we're just kind of assigning words to. They're called domain and range. The domain is the set of all x values. So in this set of 5 points, each point has an x and a y value. The domain is the set of all x values. So you can look on the graph directly. These are the x values that go along with those 5 points. That has an x value of 1, that has an x value of 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I listed out the set of all x values here, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're just describing one aspect of each of these points. The range is describing that other aspect. We're talking about the y value. So for this point, for that first point there, the x value is 1. I'm tracing down to the x-axis. But for the range, now I'm talking about the y values. So I'm thinking about where do they line up along this y-axis. Well, that has a y value of 1. So actually the range values are the same. It's 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. We're looking at where they line up along that y-axis. So we want to be able to use the different representations to find the domain and the range for each of these. So the domain, again, that's just a list of all of our x values. So I'm thinking about where is the x value in each of these points. Well, it's the first number, so 4, -5, 5, and 2. You are supposed to write these in order from least to greatest. It really doesn't matter. As long as you include each of these x values, I'm going to write them in order from least to greatest. -5 is my smallest, then 2, then 4, and then 5. Those are all my x values. Range is all the y values. So that's 2, 0, 12, and 0. Since 0 popped up twice, I don't really need to write it twice. I'm just going to write it the one time. All right, 0, 2, and 12. From a table, I'm really just listing out exactly what I see. I have x values here. That's the domain. So that's -7, 3, and 6. That's just ordered from least to greatest, and I don't have to write the -7 twice. And then the range, so all my y values, that's -1, 1, 3, and 8. Alright, now from those last two, from a mapping and from a graph. Again, the domain is the x values. The x is always on this side. That's our input. We have a few different words for this. The input, the x value, or the domain, they all really mean the same. They're whatever is the left side of the mapping or the column, or sorry, of the table, or the x value along the x-axis. So my x values are -3, -1, 2, and 4, and my y values, or my output, are 0, 4, and 7. Last one from a graph, I'm looking at the x values for each of these. -3, 1, 4, and 5 are my 4 x values. Then the y values, I'm looking at where do these points line up along the y-axis. That's at 1. That one's at 4, and that one's also at 4. I don't need to write that twice. I'm writing 4 for both of these 2 points, and then I'm going to write 7 for that last point up here. That has a y value of 7. Alright, so that is the domain and the range from each of these different representations. It's really just talking about the x and the y for any representation. So if I'm asking for the domain of a relation, just saying list out all the x values. If I ask you for the range, I'm saying list out all the y values.